Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of How Outsourcing Works. I'm your host here, Brad Stevens, founder and CEO of Outsource Access. Incredibly talented staff out of the Philippines. Bit of an automate and delegate junkie for quite some time, and was pleased to be able to start a company in this whole industry and just love celebrating the stories and journeys of clients that we've had a chance to work with and their path. We grew to 500 people in about 4.5 years, servicing 85 different industries out of the Philippines. So had a pretty cool cross section of experiences. And super excited to have Miss Betsy McAtee on with us today. She and I go way back from being a part of EO Entrepreneurs Organization together. She now served in leadership. She's over in the Birmingham chapter. I'm the Atlanta chapter. And we're both leaders during the COVID madness too, I think, weren't we?
Oh, yes. We were just trying, keeping it together with Band-Aids and duct tape.
There's a special place in heaven for those of us that were leaders during the COVID madness. But she's also, been a client of ours here at Outsource Access for, a number of years. We were talking, I think, going over 4+ years, with us. And, the whole purpose of this, podcast, this episode, in this series of how outsourcing works is when it comes to small and medium business, most people are kind of aware that it exists, virtual assistants, offshoring, outsourcing, Philippines, South America, but they're not sure exactly what are they capable of? What can they do? How does this actually integrate in my business? What about time zones? What about competency? How are my existing employees going to respond to the experience? So we like to kind of jump in and kind of go behind the scenes and share exact examples of what this whole world is like and what they're capable of doing through the lens of all kinds of different industries, right? I mean, we've had everything. We had Evan Neerman on earlier with a PR agency, and Tom with a podcasting network, and here we got Betsy with a barbecue chain. It doesn't matter. Industry does not matter, right? It's just the mindset of the owners of how they can kind of embrace this. So we'll jump into Betsy and kind of have her share her background in the organization. But real quick, as promised, we'll always share kind of a quick tech tool right up front. You're always learning about the latest app or tool that's being out there, and some of these can be really game changing, for folks. So I'll kick off real quick in one that I ran across recently. And look, there's a gazillion of these AI tools being launched, right? But there's one called Lovable, Lovable, Lovable.dev, that will create websites for you instantly, right? So you go to Lovable.dev, you kind of explain, what you're wanting to have the website being built around. You can give it other kind of references. And it's crazy, Betsy. I built one the other day. I was trying to actually do one for my kids and built out a phenomenal website, did all the HTML, built the whole thing out, interactive menu and so forth. So
wow.
I'm sure it's not the only one. There's lots of these AI tools that are being cranked out, left and right, but Lovable.dev, you can check out. We'll put in the show notes as well to create websites. So, and then Betsy and I were talking, you got one you can share with everybody that helps with a financial reconciliation.
Absolutely, Brad. And it's called Splitwise. And it's when you go out to eat with a group of people and maybe one person has paid more than everybody else, and you can split the bill up that way instead of driving your server crazy with all these separate checks. Or better yet, if you're doing a party, and people have different expenses, and it just reconciles it, and it plugs in with your Apple Pay or Venmo, and it's super easy, and it's called Splitwise.
Thanks for sharing. And you are probably saving a lot of friendships, right, by sharing that one a lot of times. I know it's frustrating. We always know that person that does not pay, right? The person that fits the bill. And Betsy and I both being in EO and I'm in YP as well. So I have 2 forums, and so we're constantly splitting things. And so we actually use this tool. It's fantastic. So when she wanted to share that one, I was like, that's perfect, right? So it's a great example. You put in exactly what you spent, and then it'll send you email notifications and remind you, right?
Yes.
Hey, you still haven't settled up, and all you do is click a button, and it minimizes the number of payments per person too, right? So if I owed Betsy and Betsy owed somebody else, but then that person owed me, then it'll consolidate, and it calculates the minimized number of payments to kind of make it a little bit easier. So
it's a super cool app, and I'm in another group, and somebody showed me. I was like, "Where's this been? Where is this? How did I not know this existed?" So super cool app. Encourage everybody to give it a go.
And that's why we share those at the beginning of the episode. To nothing else you hear on this episode, you've gotten a quick little win of a tech tool and resource. So I'll jump real quick to Betsy and let her kind of just introduce herself. And aside from both of us having Ella daughters, which I don't know if you ever heard, the Ella name typically has a special spirited kind of reputation sometimes with it. I came to realize.
Yes.
But share a little bit about your background, Betsy, and kind of what led you to your path and owning Dreamland.
Okay, all right. So I grew up kind of in the food business a little bit. Worked for Frito-Lay for 10 years. I had just about every job you could imagine, but really got my start running a chip route, right? Just delivering potato chips. And from there, I had the opportunity to join my dad. He was taking over, not really taking over, but there was a local barbecue restaurant in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he was very good friends with the family, and had a conversation with the older gentleman. He was up in age and had some health issues, and said, "Wouldn't you like for people to enjoy your product when you're no longer here?" So that kind of kicked off a friendship. And he was opening a restaurant in Birmingham, Alabama. The original's in Tuscaloosa. And so after he had another location in Mobile, when I came to work with him back in 2000, it's hard to believe it's been that long. And we got to work together for several years. He retired and then has passed away. We're now up to 10 restaurants, 10 brick and mortar restaurants. And we also have an e-commerce platform where we ship our barbecue products. We specialize in pork spare ribs all over the US. So if anybody out there is listening, it's streamlinebbq.com, and we'd love to ship you some product. And
There it is.
yeah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah,
Shop
let's
and
pull up.
ship. And we
Awesome.
also we have our sauce, our barbecue sauce in regional barbecue supermarket chains in the southeast, and we're in several of the Walmart stores within Alabama. So
Oh,
we're
nice.
hoping to grow that platform, but we're trying to have our products within arm's reach of every man, woman, and child in the U.S.
I love that vision. And so people can order
Well,
right online.
of our cooked products, and they're fully cooked, flash frozen, and they're shipped out on dry ice. So all you have to do is reheat it. We have our chopped pork, we have our chopped chicken, we have our world famous barbecue ribs, and we have our sauces, our barbecue sauce, we have a dipping sauce, barbecue shake, barbecue rub, and then we have some side items and our
There you
delicious
go.
pecan pie. And there's all kinds of packages to choose from on our e-commerce platform. We also have brick and mortar locations in 8 cities. So I know we've got 2 in the Atlanta area where you are, Brad.
Yeah.
The rest of them are in Alabama. So if any listeners are in Alabama, come visit us. And that's what we do. So we love all the barbecue holidays, as we call them: Memorial Day, Father's Day, July 4th, Labor Day. So those are our big times, and we love to supply everybody's favorite barbecue.
Well, it's a fine product. We were actually sent Betsy a selfie the other day. Our forum had a meeting up there and near one of her locations in Georgia here, and enjoyed it. And I'm a big fan. Got my smoker outside, and I'll be getting that cranked up here for the summer here coming soon.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing sort of your journey and path, and so now kind of the industry here that she's in, and so you guys heard about me and as our journey in Outsource Access and kind of our path and what we do in supporting these businesses with different offshore staff and different industries. And as I shared, launched 6 years ago and found ourselves in all these different industries doing all functions. And industry really doesn't matter, right? It doesn't really matter. It's more about the mindset of the owners that can kind of engage this path. And so so what I've asked our guests to do, Betsy, is to kind of share, first of all, like going into this journey, right? Kind of what were some of the doubt, fears, concerns that she had, and kind of exploring the world of outsourcing, and what may be any challenges with it or concerns, and understandably so. Everybody's gone down this journey, right? Just like even with hiring, anybody into the organization, you've got those things. And then to share some, specific examples of, what she's had, staff do and the impact that it's had, in the organization. So, so kind of going into it, Betsy, I know you heard me speak on and educate on it, but what were kind of the concerns for you and or your team as well when you wanted to go down this path?
So, just kind of how we actually even got to the point of entertaining the idea, it was during COVID. And because a lot of people in our industry were impacted, but we were especially impacted because we had to close dine-in operations for a while. And we got really far behind with our accounting. And we were trying to, we'd lost some people during that time frame. And I had remembered you speaking about um, virtual assistants, and I reached out and honestly didn't really know what I was getting into, but I knew we needed some help. And I remember telling my accountant what I was doing, and he said, I think it's a good idea. Let's try it. And I guess my biggest concern from the beginning was the time difference. We're on Central Time, so that's about, I think, a 13-hour time difference. I was concerned with that. I was concerned with the language barrier, and then I was concerned with how are we going to teach someone via Zoom or Teams or virtually how to do our accounting and how our corporate culture is and how we do things. And first of all, the interview process to select the virtual assistant we have was a very comprehensive. You guys did a lot of the heavy lifting, and we just got to look at who the candidates were and decide on who fit our needs best. As far as the training, the learning curve was steep, but it's going to be steep anytime you're training someone on your own accounting processes that aren't kind of mainstream.
Sure.
But we, we would have the first couple weeks we would meet every day for a couple hours trying to get our virtual assistant up to speed. But once she got it, she got it. And then the time differential has really not been a factor. We have a standing weekly call that we're all on. And then that just gives us a chance to, in real time, talk through any issues. We throw things up on the screen that need to be discussed. But the thing that I like is I can be working on something and I need the numbers, and I will send an email of all the numbers I need. And magically, when I get to work the next day, they are in my inbox. And that is something I have come to really, really appreciate.
Yeah, it's being able to have that sort of real time response on things. That's on demand, especially as business owners. You're trying to get data and information, right? It can be challenging sometimes to have to wait for those delays, but being able to kind of get it in. And I appreciate kind of unpacking sort of what your journey with was. And again, a lot of listeners, that's sort of what goes through their mind about what about time zones and what about competency and what about onboarding and how quickly that they learn, and hopefully what you saw is, and again, it just depends on what people have experienced in life and what countries they've been to and perceptions. And look, at the end of the day, a lot of companies that have bad customer service experience in different countries, a lot of times it's because they didn't train them well, right? It's not a lack of people. A lot of times we associate, different countries with competency a lot of times because, a lot of these companies didn't train them very well. And, as I share, the unique thing about the Philippines, which drew me to it, is, it's completely Americanized culture there. I mean, the United States controlled it till 1950s, so you don't have the language barrier, you don't have the culture gap, per se, that you do in some of the other countries. So it's easier for them to kind of be able to work side by side, with a barbecue restaurant in Alabama or a concrete manufacturer in Nebraska or financial services in California, versus being like an arm's length vendor. Because in our business, it's really people that are working side by side, with a business's management team and their resources. So you can't have that that culture gap as they go through. So
absolutely, absolutely. And I think the vetting process was done excellent because we were able to see a video up front, and we could hear if there was an accent, how well they spoke English. And that was just not a concern after we went through that whole interview process. But you're right, I've found there's times when I've said, oh, by the way, don't forget we're closed on this day. And she'll be like, oh yeah, we celebrate that holiday too.
yeah, Now they got Mother's Day, they got Father's Day. I mean, it's a very parallel. A lot of people, and frankly, I didn't know it when I first began this journey. I mean, I'd never been, to the Southeast Asia, Philippines. I mean, until I kind of got and understood it. But yeah, I mean, it's completely Americanized culture there because of the historical situation there. So no, it's not as much of a gap. So that makes it a lot easier for them to work side by side. And a lot of our we always just, we had a client that's in the turf care industry, and one of our staff from the Philippines is the ones that calls all their individual customers and asks them how their yard treatment was and upsells them on additional treatments, right? And you would never know that she was from there. So even some have an accent, but there's some you can't even tell at all a lot of times. So
that's awesome.
Well, thanks for sharing the journey on it, and yeah, I mean, and then being able to document, right, all that training, a key part element too, and appreciate the kind words about us. But look, there's a lot of great outsourcing virtual assistant companies out there, and we'll send you a list of kind of 10 things we recommend to ask any company. But one of those is definitely on the training and onboarding and making sure that they're keeping like a playbook. And that's one of the things that we're fanatical about, is making sure that a playbook is created from day one that's documenting and making sure that you own it, right? It's not something we're trying to control, but you own that playbook. That has all the processes, procedures, and so forth in it, so that if something did happen, or your staff needed to be out for a period of time or what have you, or they had a life event, we had to replace someone, that all those processes are being documented so that someone can kind of pick up the the role. There's a lot of concerns people have is based on what their perception. There's a lot of companies out there that just don't hire people as employees, right? And they have high turnover, and then all that institutional knowledge you invested in somebody walks out the door. So it's important to make sure you got that redundancy.
And the playbook is really good. I know I've reviewed ours from time to time just to make sure that we've not changed something and not communicated it properly. You know how sometimes you just will change something, but you don't think it's a big deal, but really, if you had to come in and teach somebody, that might be a big deal. So the playbook has been really, really good for us, and it's kind of helped hold us accountable to, okay, we need this same thing for our organization. Because
Yeah.
we're the worst, right? We're the worst. Entrepreneurs are the worst at putting those things together.
You mean you don't want to wake up every day and document some processes? I mean, I know that's what I love doing every day.
Oh, tell you. Um,
But there's we hear that a lot. I mean, it's a positive byproduct of kind of going down this path, because a lot of businesses don't have much documented in their processes. They don't have
mhm.
SOPs, they don't have playbooks, and when the person leaves, that knowledge walks right out the door. And so by going down this journey, right, it forces that process and documentation, and so it ends up creating a little bit of momentum in the organization a lot of time, of like, yeah, maybe we ought to do this for some other things, as well. So
Mhm.
well,
Mhm.
let's get into the nitty gritty of some of the exact things, like, when you began the journey. So exactly sort of what are you having her do? I know it's kind of in the accounting function, but we got everything from reconciliations to bank reconciliations to, royalties and so forth. So would you mind kind of sharing sort of where she started and sort of what the journey's been, and kind of paint that picture of all the things, for those that are out there listening and exploring, well, what can somebody actually do in accounting for my business? Kind of give some color to it.
So, in having 8 locations plus the e-commerce, we have a lot of transactions, right? We have cash transaction, credit card, third-party transactions, gift cards. So there's a lot of reconciliation involved. And one of the things that our virtual assistant does is helps in that reconciliation process. So she does
Mm,
all of our third-party reconciliation, which means we get remitted the money, but it's not a one-for-one match because they
mm,
take out fees. So it doesn't always match up. So it's one of those things that someone has to really look at all the intricacies,
mm-hmm,
because the differential, and we get printouts of all this, but just making sure that it all reconciles for every location. We're 7 days a week. So you think about it, we're 8 locations, 7 days a week. So that's 56, right? So multiply that times the number of transactions per day. So it's thousands of transactions.
mm,
So one of the things that it really streamlined our reconciliation process, which helps us get our books done on a more timely basis, is that third party. because you've got all the third-party platforms, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, Easy Cater. At one
Yep.
point in time, there was one called Waiter. So all those had to be reconciled by day and by location. So a whole lot of transactions are going with that. So she helped get that whole process streamlined to where it is done on a weekly basis now. So we're
Wow.
not going back and trying to find a payment from a month ago or 2 months ago, or heaven forbid 6 months ago. So yeah, it's that was a big one. And then the other one is cash deposits. We do still take cash, all right, and that cash has to make it to the bank. And what happens is the way the banks process the cash, they're not open on Saturday or Sunday. So our sales by day won't exactly match up to the day the cash gets deposited.
Mm.
So, it's not like you can dump it in a spreadsheet and just, you know, line it up from there. So she's been very instrumental in getting all the cash reconciliation done. We call it cash clearing in our world. Cash clearing done and making sure that if a deposit is missing, that we can identify that within a day or so rather than once a month when you wreck the bank. So
Mm.
that's been another huge time saver for us and helped us maintain our cash presence a whole lot better by someone looking at it almost daily. And then the third thing is, well, same thing with credit card deposits too. So
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
another reconciliation. Everybody pays with credit cards, right? So you've got, the different credit card types that have to be reconciled against the payments we received. And then there's fees associated with that. So all of that has to be reconciled. So there's just a lot of tying things together. Same thing with the gift cards or gift certificates. That's another payment method that we have to reconcile. So by having all of that done by one person, it's allowed us to close our books out usually by the 15th of the following month, because that's a big piece of it, is making sure that's reconciled. But the cash, because we have to keep up with that, we can identify any issue a lot faster. And then another
Wow.
thing that our virtual assistant does are the royalty calculations and
Yeah.
the keeping track of that. You have to calculate that, send it out, then make sure we get the payment back.
To the
And that is
franchisees, right? Because you got what?
franchisees. Yes, yes, we're the franchisor. So just making sure that, that flow that's coming in, that we get that not only calculated, but get the funds back into our bank account. And that also has to do with the bank reconciliation as well.
Wow. So it's a lot of reconciliation, right? In terms of all of these different data points that have got to be done and reconciled, right? And when we talk about things that we can support, right, it's things that are people want to get off their plates or things that are not getting, done. So, prior to her kind of stepping in and doing this function, like how was it being done internally? Were there certain elements that weren't necessarily completely getting done? And then how long was it taking to get the books closed out? Prior, like what did it kind of look like beforehand?
So we were in a mess when our virtual assistant came on board, simply because we'd been through COVID. We'd lost folks. So I would say the first 8 to 12 months, we were just catching up, digging out of a hole. Um, but prior to that, it would take us about 60 days to really get everything done.
Wow.
But the biggest thing is now, if there is a missing cash deposit, we know almost within 36 hours, 48, depending on if it's on a weekend. And that's huge because, if there's an issue, you want to get it addressed as soon as possible. It could be an error. Manager could have gotten distracted as they were walking outside the restaurant and put it down as they were closing up. They could have had an issue where it didn't reconcile on their end, and rather than putting the cash in the bank, they decided to come back and do it the next day. It's just a whole host of things outside of the obvious, which is theft. And it just allows us to have a clearer picture of that in a much faster time frame, because previously we didn't have someone that was actually looking at it every day. So you might not catch it till you reconcile the bank, which could be as many as 30 days later.
Yeah, no, it's timeliness of those kind of things, and they add up. And if it stacks up and there's more and more and more that has to be going through, then there's probably a lower chance of it actually getting done, with a level of detail. So, so I love sharing that. I mean, that's a perfect example within so many people, in small to medium business that are out there, is just that second bucket, right? Which are things that you want to be doing, but you're not getting to due to time, money, or knowledge constraints, right? And for you guys being able to have a resource, right, that you could put in place that could do that, was what you were able to kind of fill the gap on. And so we hear that so much we got another client, you actually know Chip Dodd. I think another member. Chip has got a big healthcare company. He's been with us he's got 8 people with us. And I was interviewing him, and, one of the things that fell in that bucket for them was, is being able to, monitor all the, continuing education credits for all his staff that are out there. Because if Medicare comes at any time and finds out that someone didn't have their proper certifications, they get dinged and they take all the money back that they paid them. Right. And so it was a huge thing. So being able to have a staff that could monitor literally 160 of his employees, continued education certificates, and make sure, and sends them a weekly email and says, "Hey, Betsy, you haven't done your CPR training, right? You need to kind of get up to speed on that." It's amazing in a lot of our businesses, a lot of things that fall into that second bucket, that by getting the proper resource that is a more affordable, kind of rate, that a lot of people just like, we can't quite afford, what it would cost probably to do that. But this kind of provides a stopgap to be able to plug in a resource that can support.
Absolutely. And some of the things that, I was having to do prior to our virtual assistant coming on, it's freed me up to do other things. And just kind of thinking outside the box, any type of spreadsheet projections that, I could do, I will have our virtual assistant do it, because it allows me to then look at other things within the business that I can spend my time, focused on and hopefully impacting. And because she's knowledgeable with our systems, I don't have to tell her where to go pull the numbers. I just say what numbers I need and she can put it together.
That's fantastic. It's kind of on demand, being able to get what you have. And as entrepreneurs, as the visionary kind of CEO type of roles, right? That's the space that, we can add a lot of value, is being able to consider new ideas and new paths ahead. And, probably a lot of the things that you guys have implemented, as it relates to online ordering and other things you've expanded, probably ideas, but necessarily didn't get a chance to bring to life, or a chance to crunch the numbers on it and see what are the economics. And so now, you're able to do those things you wouldn't have otherwise, because you've got a resource that can get the information and, run the numbers and forecast it.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you something I did a while back, and it was a really good exercise. At the end of every day, I would look at what I had done that day. And I said, what did you do today that someone else could have done that didn't need your exact expertise? In other words, was it something I had to do, or could somebody else do it? And I called it, what did you do today that you could have delegated list? And it was very eye-opening, Brad. I had a little sticky in my car. Like when I had my oil changed, the guy's like, what is that? And I was like, I'll tell you about it after you change my oil. But it was just really fascinating, because, I caught myself. I was like, well, wait, I could have our virtual assistant do that very easily. Because of it was kind of the same thought process, but because I had always done it, it just kind of fell within my purview. So that was a very good exercise for me.
What did you call it? The end of day
What did you
delegation?
do today that you could have delegated?
I love it. And that's,
Mhm.
it's funny. Actually, you mentioned that. I'll kind of share everybody as far as a tool that we can actually provide that'll help with that journey. But that's exactly, people have to go that exercise, right? I mean, it does take, got to think through what are the things, and really you just kind of have to keep it either in Apple Notes or a Post-it or sticky pad. It's not because you'll forget about it unless you capture it at the moment that you're doing it. You're like, yep, this isn't the best use of my time, of what I want to be doing. And you got to capture it. And then the other thing we encourage people to do is truly take a moment to try and put a pencil to how many hours per month are you spending on that particular thing, right? Especially if it's a recurring, type of basis. So that's great. I mean, couldn't have said it better for people to get into that mindset, because it's about automating and delegating, right? And it's getting things off. And then it's also, you know, and the interesting thing too is it creates a culture lift in organizations that we found when people that add additional staff that are supporting, is that it's allowing yourself and your staff to be able to do those things that they love, their feet to hit the ground every day, that they love doing, and getting those things shifted off. I mean, like Chip, he said that's one of the biggest benefits with using your team is my staff, they can't go work for any of my competitors where they're going to give them a dedicated full-time resource that's supporting them, right? And so it creates a retention for his existing W-2 employees and creates a culture lift because they can focus on what they want to be focusing on. And so I'm sure, like when your organization, right, as far as whoever was kind of partially managing this or not, right, as far as it wasn't the ideal thing they wanted to do, cash reconciliations and all the minutiae detail, but with our staff, like it's something that enjoys and is very good at. And same thing for you. You can kind of dream a bit and have some more of those shiny balls that we all have floating above our head that you're trying to bat down. But hey, some of them are good, and you want to be able to kind of bring them to life and get a chance to do
Absolutely.
that.
Well, and it allows me to be out in the stores more rather than in an office staring at a computer screen. I can be with
Yeah,
our guests and our employees and making sure we're delivering on that experience.
no, exactly. And that's, again, back to your highest and best use. We had sharing earlier, we had a turf care company that they had managers of their different locations, and very similar is they were spending all their time in the software routing everybody where they were supposed to be going out in the field every day, not spending time with the employees and customers and so forth. And by centralizing all the routing to our team in the software, that they could go spend that time with their customers and with their employees. And the same thing for you. I mean, when it comes to hospitality and food, it's all about the customer experience. And so you get to put that
Absolutely.
Betsy touch on things. So,
Yeah.
and everybody can see behind her here, actually, I was asking her, those are the photography of all their locations around that she's got, behind her. So
The cities where all are
cities.
located, kind of like what's the landmark of that city?
Oh, gotcha. Exactly.
hmm hmm
Well, thank you
So
so
that's
much,
what we're
Betsy.
filming.
Yeah, those are fantastic. And it's a great, back to the point of, kind of being connected to your business and to your people and the communities, right? You've got it kind of right there front and center. So, well, it's been great to have the opportunity to serve and support you over the years, and glad to hear, I mean, I've always had a general idea of sort of what we're doing for clients and with you, but to hear the deeper detail and the impact it's had has been really, really exciting. So for anybody that's looking for some barbecue in any of the locations, where they're offered physical brick and mortar, dreamlandbbq.com. And as you saw, you can get some of those tasty ribs and sauces ordered and shipped directly to you, which is fantastic. So nationwide. So you guys are shipping nationwide on that, right?
Nationwide. Yes, yes.
That's awesome.
Fully cooked, frozen. All you got to do is reheat it.
Fantastic. Well, very good. Well, thank you, Betsy. I appreciate the time to connect and to kind of share, your journey and path and kind of what took you down and what the doubt, fears, and concerns and where you stepped into. And here we are, 4 years later, and continue to add value. And so if anybody wants to learn more about us at Outsource Access, you can go to outsourceaccess.com and got tons of videos and resources there to kind of take you, behind the scenes of kind of what our whole world is. And, with interviews with staff and kind of hear exactly how they communicate and the impact that they've had. And as I alluded to, as Betsy talked about her delegate, list, is we've got this template. And if you'll send an email to tools@outsourceaccess.com, so that's tools with an S at outsourceaccess.com, and put a Dreamland in the subject line. That's all you got to do. You have to write a note. We'll know it came from this episode. We'll send you a whole boatload of resources and tools. And one of those is our 2-question template here, which is where we'll have you have a template where you can actually go through and unpack those constraints, right? Those 2 questions. What are you doing that's not the best use of your time? And how many hours per month are you spending on it? And then what do you want to be doing or feel you should be doing, you're not getting to due to time, money, or knowledge, right? And whether you're an individual or kind of take these 2 questions and send it to your team. We've done this with startups to, $300 million businesses, and every time get a great result. So it's got 3 tabs. There'll be a little video to explain it. We've got over 700 tasks in here. We've done, millions of hours of work over the last year. So we've taken 700 tasks organized by operations, customer service, marketing that you can kind of scan through here, and it may trigger some things that you don't even think could be outsourced. We'll show you an example of a completed 2-question exercise that a company actually did, obviously without any confidential information there. And then we got a tab where you can kind of take a turn yourself, right? Where you can actually go through. So, copy and paste these 2 questions, send it out, or go through the exercise yourself. And it's amazing when you add this up, right? How many hours of things you're doing that aren't the best use of your time? And then what are things you wish you could be doing? It creates a whole runway of things that you can kind of explore with the whole offshoring, outsourcing, world. So we'll shoot that your way as a resource. And so you can do some constraints exercise and eat some ribs at the same time. You order from Dreamland. So it's been awesome in our journey, Betsy, and our path over the last number of years in EO. And thanks for the opportunity to serve you and support you, and look forward to continuing to see your growth ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brad. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.